First Contact Protocol Breach. Ambassador Sarah Chen massaged her temples as she reviewed the First Contact Protocols for the 100th time. The gleaming diplomatic vessel of the Galactic Alliance hung in Earth's orbit like a crystalline snowflake, a reminder of just how far humanity had to go. After centuries of wondering if we were alone in the universe, First Contact had come not with a bang, but with a politely worded message about our quaint but concerning approach to faster-than-light travel experiments. Ma'am, her assistant, Dr. James Rodriguez, poked his head into her office aboard the International Space Station's diplomatic wing. The Alliance delegation will dock in 30 minutes, but we might have a small problem. Sarah looked up, dreading whatever new crisis had emerged. Define small. Dr. Marcus from the Theoretical Physics Department got into the celebration champagne early. He's solving equations on the welcome banner. Sarah stood up so fast, she had to grab her zero-gravity anchor. He's what? The scene in the welcome bay was exactly as absurd as James had suggested. Dr. Theodore Marcus, Earth's leading theoretical physicist and notorious lightweight when it came to alcohol, was floating in the middle of the room. He had commandeered several markers meant for the welcome signatures and was scrawling complex mathematical formulas across the Welcome Galactic Alliance banner. A small crowd of other scientists and diplomats watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. The quantum resonance pattern, Marcus exclaimed as Sarah entered, his gray hair wild in the zero-gravity. It's so obvious when you look at it sideways. The Alliance's FTL drive isn't using subspace at all. They're using dimensional folding. Look, I can prove it. Ted, get down from there, right now, Sarah hissed. But it was too late. The airlock cycled, and the first representatives of the Galactic Alliance entered the welcome bay. The aliens, tall crystalline beings with shifting patterns of light beneath their translucent outer layers, stopped abruptly. Their leader, who had introduced himself in previous communications as High Commissioner Zix, tilted his crystalline head structure at an angle that Sarah would later learn indicated extreme surprise. Is that the Krantz divergence theorem? Zix's translator hummed. The proof has eluded our mathematicians for 12,000 years. Marcus turned, marker still in hand. Oh no, that was just the starting point. See, if you apply nonlinear topology to the quantum field equations. He hiccuped. Sorry, bit of champagne. Anyway, look here. If you consider the dimensional folding aspect. To Sarah's utter astonishment, 3 of the Alliance scientists floated forward, their internal lights pulsing with what she would later recognize as excitement. They began discussing the equations with Marcus, their translators working overtime to keep up with the complex mathematical terminology. Impossible, one of them declared. The energy requirements alone. Ah. But that's where you're wrong. Marcus grinned, starting on a new section of the banner. If you account for the quantum foam effect at the picometer scale. Sarah watched in growing amazement as the first official contact between humanity and the Galactic Alliance devolved into an impromptu physics symposium. Marcus, still slightly drunk, was explaining concepts that supposedly took Alliance scientists centuries to grasp, sketching out proofs with the casual ease of someone drawing stick figures. High Commissioner Zix drifted over to Sarah. Ambassador Chen, the translator hummed. We were concerned about humanity's unusual approach to scientific advancement. Your species has achieved in decades what took others centuries. I apologize for this irregular welcome. Sarah began, but Zix raised an appendage. No apology necessary. I believe we are beginning to understand. Your Dr. Marcus has just revolutionized our understanding of dimensional physics while, as you say, under the influence. This is precisely what makes your species so remarkable, and perhaps to some concerning. Sarah watched as Marcus, now surrounded by eager Alliance scientists, began explaining his theory using a half-empty champagne bottle as a prop to demonstrate dimensional folding. We tend to think better when we stop thinking so hard, she offered. Indeed, Zix's internal lights shifted to a pattern Sarah couldn't interpret. The Alliance Council will need to be informed of this development, a species that makes breakthrough discoveries by accident while celebrating. This changes everything we thought we knew about scientific advancement. As if to prove Zix's point, Marcus suddenly shouted, "Oh, and if we apply this to your propulsion systems, we could probably increase efficiency by—" "Hold my drink, would you?" He handed his champagne to the nearest Alliance scientist, who took it with an appendage that trembled either with excitement or concern. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Humanity's first official contact with galactic civilization, and it was going to be remembered as the day a tipsy physicist rewrote the laws of dimensional mechanics on a welcome banner. Somehow, it felt perfectly appropriate. The next few hours passed in a blur of mathematical discussions, impromptu physics demonstrations, and what Sarah could only describe as growing excitement among the Alliance scientists. By the time the formal welcoming ceremony was supposed to have concluded, 3 more human scientists had joined Marcus in his equations. 2 Alliance researchers had requested permanent exchange positions at Earth universities, and someone had started passing around more champagne. As Sarah watched humanity's carefully planned first contact protocols crumble in the face of drunk scientific collaboration, she couldn't help but smile. Perhaps this was exactly the kind of first impression Earth needed to make, not as a species that followed the rules, but as one that broke them in exactly the right ways. High Commissioner Zix drifted back to her side. "Ambassador Chen, I must inform you that I've already sent a priority message to the Alliance Council. Your species, you humans, have a saying about necessity being the mother of invention." "We do," Sarah nodded. "Well, it seems that in humanity's case, serendipity and what you call happy accidents are the eccentric aunts of invention. The Council will have quite a lot to discuss." Zix's internal lights pulsed in what Sarah was starting to recognize as amusement. "Though perhaps we should wait until Dr. Marcus is fully sober before we schedule any formal scientific exchanges." "Probably wise," Sarah agreed, watching as Marcus began explaining how the same principles could be applied to make a more efficient coffee maker. "Though you might be surprised at what else he comes up with in the meantime." As if on cue, Marcus's voice rose above the general discussion. No, look, if we apply the dimensional folding to thermodynamics, we could revolutionize breakfast. Who's got another marker? This is going to be brilliant." Sarah made a mental note to stock up on aspirin for the inevitable hangover, and to frame that equation-covered welcome banner. Something told her it was going to become a historic document, just not in the way anyone had planned. The quantum coffee incident. 3 months after the infamous first contact celebration, Dr. Theodore Marcus had mostly lived down his drunk physics breakthrough. The equation-covered welcome banner hung in the Smithsonian, and the Alliance had officially recognized his proof as a major advancement in dimensional mechanics. But it was what happened in the International Space Station's newly established Joint Human-Alliance Research Lab that would truly cement humanity's reputation for chaos-driven innovation. Dr. Elena Santos stood in front of the smoking remains of what had been intended to be a simple coffee maker, surrounded by a mix of concerned human engineers and utterly baffled Alliance scientists. The machine's internal components were giving off a soft blue glow that definitely wasn't standard for coffee preparation equipment. "So," she said, running a hand through her curly hair, "good news and bad news. The good news is we've accidentally created a quantum computational matrix. The bad news is it only works when making coffee." High Commissioner Zix, who had extended his stay on the station to oversee the joint research initiatives, moved closer to examine the device. His crystalline form rippled with patterns that Elena had learned indicated deep confusion. "Dr. Santos," the translator hummed, "your team was assigned to improve the station's beverage preparation systems. How did you accidentally create quantum computing architecture?" Elena gestured to the machine's exposed interior. "Well, we were trying to solve the problem of uniform heat distribution in zero gravity. Dr. Chen suggested we could use some of the principles from Dr. Marcus's dimensional folding theory to create micropockets of stabilized spacetime, ensuring even heating throughout the coffee. A reasonable approach, one of the Alliance scientists agreed. Right. But then Jeff from engineering said, "Hold my coffee," ironic in retrospect, and suggested we could use quantum tunneling to simultaneously heat all points in the coffee at once. We thought he was joking, but then Maria pointed out that if we modified some spare parts from the Alliance FTL communication array, she trailed off as the machine made a sound that somehow existed both before and after it was heard. A perfect cup of coffee materialized in the output chamber, steam rising in mathematically precise curls. The quantum matrix uses the coffee molecules as computational qubits, Elena continued, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. Each cup of coffee it makes solves about 3,000 years' worth of calculations. We think it's because of the way the caffeine molecules interact with the quantum field, but honestly, we're still trying to figure out exactly how it works. The Alliance scientists were now clustered around the machine, their internal lights pulsing rapidly as they took readings. One of them reached out with a sensor appendage, then quickly pulled it back. "This is impossible," the scientist declared. "The energy requirements alone." "Oh, that was Jeff's other suggestion," Elena said. "We ran a power cable to the break room's microwave. Turns out if you cross the streams just right." She shrugged. "Like I said, we're still working out the details." High Commissioner Zix's translator was silent for a long moment. "Let me understand this correctly. Your team, while attempting to make a better coffee machine, accidentally created a quantum computer that exceeds the processing power of our most advanced systems, powered it with modified cooking equipment, and made it all work through what you humans call caffeine physics." "Pretty much," Elena nodded. "Though we prefer to call it quantum coffee dynamics. Sounds more scientific." The machine hummed again, producing another cup of perfect coffee along with what appeared to be the solutions to several previously unsolvable mathematical theorems written in cream on the surface. "The Council must be informed immediately," one of the Alliance scientists said, their crystalline form vibrating with what Elena had learned was their equivalent of excitement. "This changes everything we thought we knew about quantum mechanics and beverage preparation. We'll need to establish new research protocols," another added. "Safety guidelines. Proper experimental procedures." Elena exchanged glances with her human colleagues. They all recognized that, look, the Alliance was about to try to standardize and regulate their happy accident into something safe, predictable, and probably far less interesting. "About that," she said carefully, "we've already started working on an improved version. We think if we can integrate the quantum coffee matrix with the station's main computer." She paused as one of the Alliance scientists made a sound like breaking crystal. "You want to network an untested quantum system powered by caffeinated particle physics with your life support computers." The translator somehow managed to convey both horror and fascination. "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds unsafe," Jeff called from where he was already modifying another coffee maker. "But think of the possibilities. We could revolutionize both computing and coffee at the same time." High Commissioner Zix's internal lights shifted to a pattern Elena hadn't seen before. "Dr. Santos, I believe I begin to understand why some members of the Council are concerned about humanity's approach to scientific advancement. Is it because we keep making groundbreaking discoveries by accident while trying to improve our snack breaks?" Elena asked, taking the sip from one of the quantum-computed coffee cups. Perfect temperature, and she was pretty sure she could suddenly understand five-dimensional geometry. "Precisely. Your species seems to possess an unique ability to achieve the impossible simply because you were not properly informed that it was, in fact, impossible." Zix moved closer to the machine as it produced another cup, this one seemingly containing the unified field theory written in coffee rings. "The Council will need to debate the implications of this development very carefully." Elena watched as Jeff and Maria began explaining their plans for Quantum Coffee Maker 2.0 to the increasingly agitated Alliance scientists. She could almost see the moment when professional scientific curiosity overcame their instinctive caution. "You know," she said to Zix. "We've got some ideas about applying these principles to the sandwich maker next. Want to stick around and see what happens?" The High Commissioner's translator was silent for a moment. I suspect I should say no. However, in the interest of scientific documentation, Zix's form shimmered with what Elena now recognized as resigned amusement. "Perhaps we should establish some basic safety protocols first. At minimum, we should avoid any attempts to quantum entangle the condiments." "Too late," Jeff called out cheerfully. "But don't worry, we're pretty sure the mayo isn't actually violating causality anymore. Mostly sure. Like at least 60% sure." Elena grinned as she watched another cup of coffee materialize, this one somehow containing what appeared to be the complete works of Shakespeare encoded in its molecular structure. Something told her the Alliance Council was going to have a very interesting meeting about this one. Emergency Council Session. The Grand Council Chamber of the Galactic Alliance was designed to inspire awe. Its vast crystalline dome captured the light of 3 suns, creating an ever-shifting array of colors that danced across the assembled representatives of 2,000 species. Today, however, the chamber hummed with an unusual tension as High Commissioner Zix presented his report on humanity. "Esteemed members of the Council," Zix began, his crystalline form projecting carefully controlled patterns of light, "I stand before you with unprecedented news. In the 3 months since first contact, humanity has produced 17 major scientific breakthroughs, 12 of which were complete accidents, and 5 of which technically violate our understanding of universal laws." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated voices. Representative Kethrix of the Logical Concordat raised 3 of their eye stalks. "Clarify, technically violate," their translator hummed. Zix's internal lights flickered in what those who knew him recognized as discomfort. The humans have a tendency to ignore impossible problems by simply not recognizing them as impossible. For instance, their quantum coffee maker. "The what?" several voices asked simultaneously. "A beverage preparation device that accidentally creates stable quantum computational matrices through what they call caffeine physics. It's currently being used to solve Millennium Prize problems while making espresso." Zix paused as the chamber erupted again. "That's actually one of their more comprehensible innovations." Ambassador Nexel of the Elder Worlds leaned forward, their ancient form casting shadows in the chamber's light. "We have reviewed the data from their space station. Their approach to scientific advancement is chaotic, dangerous, and completely unpredictable. They appear to operate on the principle of let's try it and see what happens." "Precisely," Zix agreed. "Just yesterday, a human engineer named Jeff, the one from the coffee incident." Someone interrupted. "The same. He attempted to upgrade their food replication system with principles derived from the quantum coffee maker. He succeeded in creating what they're calling a probability sandwich, a quantum entangled lunch that exists in all possible states of deliciousness simultaneously." The Logical Concordat's representatives made a sound like shattering glass. "That's not possible." "The humans appear to have a different definition of possible than the rest of the galaxy," Zix continued. "They've begun referring to our established scientific laws as helpful suggestions. Their lead physicist, Dr. Marcus, the one who solved the Krantz divergence theorem while intoxicated. Yes, he now maintains that any sufficiently advanced physics is indistinguishable from winging it. His team is currently working on something they call a freestyle dimensional drive, which they insist will work because, and I quote, "the math looks pretty cool." Ambassador Nexel's ancient form trembled. "This is precisely why we established the protocols of progressive development. Species must advance in careful, measured steps. Humanity is treating the fundamental forces of the universe like a trial-and-error experiment." "With respect, Ambassador," Zix countered, "their methods, while unorthodox, are producing results. The quantum coffee maker alone has solved 300 previously intractable mathematical problems, though it does occasionally produce beverages that temporarily exist in 5 dimensions." A new voice spoke up. Administrator Venn of the Scientific Council. What concerns me is not just their chaotic methods, but how they're spreading. 3 Alliance research stations have already reported their scientists attempting to. What was the phrase? Hold my drink and watch this. The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity's approach to science wasn't just succeeding, it was proving infectious. There's more, Zix said reluctantly. The humans have begun sharing their technical documentation with other species. They call it open-source science. The Arcturian Science Academy attempted to replicate their quantum coffee experiments last week. Results. Someone called out. They accidentally created a tea that grants temporary precognition. The humans were delighted and immediately suggested a beverage-based computational exchange program. Ambassador Nexel rose to their full height. This cannot continue. Humanity must be contained before they destabilize the entire galaxy's scientific foundation. I move for an immediate vote on quarantine measures. Seconded, the logical Concordat representatives Troist. Before we vote, Six interjected, there is one more development you should be aware of. Dr. Santos and her team have been monitoring unusual energy readings from their quantum coffee maker. They believe it may have accidentally created a bridge to what they're calling caffeine space, a theoretical dimension of pure computational potential. The chamber erupted once again, this time in multiple languages that overwhelmed the translation systems. When order was finally restored, Administrator Venn spoke again. High Commissioner, are you suggesting that humans have accidentally discovered an entirely new dimension of reality while trying to make a better cup of coffee? Not exactly, Zix replied. They discovered it while trying to make a better cup of coffee, but they insist it wasn't entirely accidental. Apparently, Jeff said, watch this first, which they claim makes it a legitimate experiment. Ambassador Nexel's form darkened. The vote must proceed immediately. All in favor of implementing quarantine protocols. The chamber's emergency communication system activated, cutting off the vote. A junior aide's panicked voice filled the space. Council members, we're detecting a massive gravitational anomaly approaching Alliance space. Conventional physics can't explain it. Nothing in our defense protocols. How long until impact? Nexel demanded. 17 standard hours. Our best scientists say it's impossible to stop. The chamber fell silent. Then, almost reluctantly, Administrator Venn asked, High Commissioner Zix, does humanity's hold my drink approach to physics extend to gravitational anomalies? Zix's internal lights pulsed with what might have been hope. I believe Dr. Marcus did mention something about wanting to try gravity surfing last week. Shall I make a call? The council chamber, for the first time in its ancient history, witnessed the unusual sight of 2,000 species simultaneously realizing that sometimes the galaxy's greatest problems might require humanity's unique approach to impossible solutions. Operation Hold My Beer. Dr. Theodore Marcus stared at the holographic projection of the approaching gravitational anomaly, a cup of quantum-computed coffee in one hand and a half-eaten probability sandwich in the other. Around him, the emergency response center aboard the International Space Station buzzed with an odd mix of Alliance scientists running careful calculations and human engineers jerry-rigging equipment while shouting what-if scenarios at each other. So, he said, taking the sip of coffee that temporarily allowed him to perceive 11 dimensions, you're telling me this thing is basically a runaway black hole that's not actually a black hole. High Commissioner Zix's crystalline form rippled with concern. Our sensors indicate it's a quantum gravitational phenomenon that defies standard physical laws. It's consuming space-time itself, growing larger with each solar system it absorbs. And conventional methods can't stop it because it exists in a state of quantum uncertainty that makes traditional physics useless. Elena Santos added, reviewing data from the quantum coffee maker sensors. It's simultaneously there and not there until it destroys something, which collapses its wave function and makes it very definitely there. Schrödinger's apocalypse, Jeff commented from where he was inexplicably dismantling the station's microwave. Dr. Marcus, What if we try to surf it? The Alliance scientists made various sounds of horror, but Marcus's eyes lit up. Surf it? Yeah, like ride the wave of space-time distortion. If we can't stop it from the outside, maybe we can mess with it from the inside. Jeff held up what appeared to be a fusion of microwave parts and quantum coffee maker components. I've been working on this thing that sort of accidentally bends probability. Absolutely not, Ambassador Nexel declared, their ancient form projecting waves of disapproval through the holographic communication link. The Council forbids any experimental approaches that could potentially worsen the crisis. Elena raised an eyebrow. With respect, Ambassador, experimental approaches are kind of our thing. And since your conventional methods have a 0% chance of success, what's the worst that could happen? Jeff asked cheerfully, now attaching his device to what looked suspiciously like parts from the probability sandwich maker. The complete destruction of space-time, as we know it, an Alliance scientist responded. Well, yeah, but that's happening anyway, Jeff pointed out. So technically, we can only improve the situation. Dr. Marcus, remember that thing you said about dimensional folding last week? Marcus's eyes widened. When I was trying to figure out how to fold my laundry in 4-dimensional space to save time. Jeff, that was a joke. He stopped, the quantum coffee apparently kicking in. Oh wait. That's absolutely insane enough to work. He rushed to a whiteboard, beginning to sketch equations. If we combine the quantum uncertainty principle from the anomaly with the dimensional folding theory, and then add in the probability manipulation from Jeff's device. You can't seriously be considering this, Ambassador Nexel protested. This crisis requires careful, methodical. Hold my coffee, Marcus interrupted, handing his quantum-computed drink to Zix. Elena, can you get me the data from the caffeine space experiments? Jeff, keep building whatever that thing is. And somebody get me a fresh whiteboard. I'm going to need to break a few laws of physics. The next 14 hours were a blur of activity that would later give Alliance safety inspectors nightmares. Marcus's team combined theoretical physics with what he called freestyle engineering. Jeff continued building his improbable device, while cheerfully ignoring questions about whether it violated causality, and Elena's quantum coffee maker produced enough hyper-caffeinated solutions to temporarily turn the station's break room into a nexus of infinite probability. Okay, Marcus announced with 3 hours to spare, standing in front of a maze of equations and diagrams. Here's the plan. We're going to surf the gravitational anomaly by riding the probability wave of its quantum uncertainty state. Jeff's device will create a bubble of altered space-time around us, using principles derived from both the quantum coffee maker and the probability sandwich technology. And this will stop the anomaly. Six asked, their translator struggling to convey both hope and skepticism simultaneously. Maybe, Marcus grinned, or it might turn the entire region into a dimension of pure mathematics. Either way, problem solved. That's your plan. Ambassador Nexel's hologram flickered with what might have been despair. To maybe solve the crisis, or maybe transform a significant portion of the galaxy into an abstract mathematical concept. If it helps, Elena offered, we're about 60% sure it'll work the way we want it to. Those are pretty good odds for us. Jeff looked up from his device, which was now glowing in colors that shouldn't exist. Ready whenever you are, Dr. Marcus. I've got it calibrated to what I'm pretty sure is the right frequency. Though I should mention there's a small chance it might accidentally create a new form of geometry. New geometry could be fun, Marcus mused. All right, let's do this. Operation Hold My Beer is go. What happened next would be debated in Alliance scientific circles for centuries. Marcus's team, aboard a hastily modified shuttle equipped with Jeff's impossible device, approached the gravitational anomaly while broadcasting a field of quantum probability manipulated by caffeine physics. The Alliance fleet watched in horror and fascination as the tiny human vessel seemingly violated every known law of physics simultaneously. They're approaching the anomaly's event horizon, an Alliance scientist reported. By all known physics, they should be destroyed instantly. Good thing we don't know much about physics then. Jeff's voice crackled over the comm. Hey, Dr. Marcus, want to try that four-dimensional loop-de-loop you were talking about? The shuttle disappeared into the anomaly's quantum uncertainty field. For several tense minutes, every sensor in the Alliance fleet went haywire, recording data that caused several highly advanced AI systems to temporarily shut down in protest. Then, just as suddenly, both the shuttle and the anomaly reappeared. The anomaly had been transformed into what Elena would later describe as a really interesting probability, not that only mostly exists in our dimension. The shuttle, somehow, was completely intact. Mission accomplished. Marcus's voice came through clearly. Also, we might have accidentally discovered a new fundamental force of nature. Jeff's calling it the power of vibes. We should probably study that when we get back. Ambassador Nexel's hologram was silent for a long moment. High Commissioner Zix, they finally said, I believe we need to reconsider our approach to containing humanity's scientific endeavors. Oh, Zix asked, watching as the shuttle performed what appeared to be a victory lap through 6 dimensions simultaneously. Yes, it occurs to me that attempting to contain chaos might be significantly more dangerous than learning to work with it. As if to prove the point, Jeff's voice came through again. Hey, while we're out here, anyone want to see what happens if we try to drift through probability space? I made some modifications to the engine while we were surfing the anomaly. The Alliance fleet watched, half in terror and half in amazement, as humanity once again proved that sometimes the best solution to an impossible problem was to simply ignore its impossibility entirely. A new understanding. 1 month after Operation Hold My Beer, the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance had been substantially remodeled. The formerly pristine crystalline dome now featured a small coffee bar in one corner, complete with a certified quantum coffee maker. Alliance scientists had insisted on adding numerous safety protocols to the device, though they couldn't quite explain how one makes a quantum computational matrix any safer. High Commissioner Zix stood before the assembled representatives, his crystalline form displaying patterns that indicated both amusement and resignation. Behind him, a holographic display showed various images from recent Human Alliance collaboration projects, including what appeared to be a space station executing a perfect barrel roll. Esteemed members of the Council, Zix began, I present my final report on the Human Integration Initiative. In the month since the gravitational anomaly incident, we have observed a 300% increase in scientific breakthroughs across Alliance space. We have also recorded a 500% increase in the use of the phrase, "watch this," in research facilities. Ambassador Nexel, who had surprisingly become one of humanity's strongest advocates, raised their ancient form. And the stability concerns. Significantly less problematic than anticipated. While human methods remain chaotic, they have proven remarkably effective at teaching other species how to, as they put it, safely break the rules of reality. Zix's internal lights pulsed with what might have been pride. Dr. Marcus and his team have established what they call the Controlled Chaos Protocol. The holographic display shifted to show the new human training facility aboard the International Space Station. Dr. Theodore Marcus stood before a class of Alliance scientists, a quantum coffee in one hand and a probability sandwich in the other. The key, Marcus's recorded voice explained, is understanding that the universe isn't nearly as rigid as we thought. Physics isn't a set of unchangeable laws. It's more like a collection of strong suggestions that are open to creative interpretation. The recording showed him taking a bite of his sandwich, temporarily existing in 3 places at once. See, the universe has a sense of humor. Once you accept that, everything becomes much easier. The human approach to scientific advancement, Zix continued, while unorthodox, has proven to be a valuable complement to our traditional methods. Their ability to think laterally and challenge basic assumptions has already led to significant improvements in our technology. The display showed Jeff, now heading his own research team, demonstrating something he called quantum vibes engineering to a group of fascinated Alliance researchers. Look, He was saying, sometimes you just have to ask yourself, what if physics was more fun? And then build something to test that hypothesis. Administrator Venn of the Scientific Council spoke up. And what of the concerns about safety? Surely this freestyle science poses risks. Actually, Zix responded, human statistical analysis shows that their chaotic approach, when properly managed, results in fewer catastrophic incidents than our traditional methods. They call it failing fast and failing small. By encouraging controlled experimentation and accepting minor failures, they prevent the accumulation of hidden problems that could lead to major disasters. The display shifted to Dr. Elena Santos' lab, where she was explaining the principle to a group of Alliance safety inspectors. Think of it like a pressure release valve, she said, while her quantum coffee maker produced a cup that briefly achieved sentience. Better to have lots of small, manageable surprises than one big universe-threatening one. Furthermore, Zix continued, the humans have introduced a concept they call peer review by chaos. Each breakthrough is tested not just for its intended function, but for how it handles unexpected situations. They've even gamified the process. Scientists compete to find the most interesting ways their discoveries might go wrong, allowing them to build in safeguards before any actual problems occur. The council chamber buzzed with discussion. Ambassador Nexel's ancient form glowed with approval. And what of the gravitational anomaly? Has there been any recurrence? No, though Dr. Marcus's team continues to monitor what they're calling the probability knot. They've actually turned it into a research station. Apparently, its unique quantum state makes it perfect for testing new ideas. If an experiment goes wrong, it both does and doesn't happen until someone observes it. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber, a response that would have been unthinkable just months ago. The Alliance was learning not just to accept chaos, but to appreciate it. There is one final matter, Zix added. The humans have submitted a formal proposal to establish what they're calling the Department of Holding My Beer and Finding Out. They suggest it serve as a joint human alliance research initiative, focusing on questions that begin with, I wonder what would happen if. To everyone's surprise, it was Administrator Venn who spoke in favor. I believe we should approve this proposal. The humans have taught us something valuable. That progress doesn't always follow a straight line, and that sometimes the best discoveries come from simply being willing to try the impossible. Besides, Ambassador Nexel added with what might have been a chuckle, I've grown quite fond of the probability sandwiches. The vote was unanimous. As the council members filed out, many headed toward the quantum coffee bar. Zix remained behind, watching the holographic display cycle through images of human and Alliance scientists working together. There was Jeff, teaching a group of crystalline beings how to vibe with the quantum field. Dr. Marcus, explaining his laundry-folding dimensional physics to an enthralled audience. Elena, demonstrating how to safely contain a coffee-based quantum singularity. A small alert appeared in Zix's visual field, a message from the human research team. They had apparently discovered something interesting while trying to teach the quantum coffee maker to play jazz. The message ended with what had become humanity's contribution to the galactic scientific method. Not sure what's going to happen, but it's going to be awesome. Want to watch? Zix found himself moving toward the research center before he'd even finished reading. After all, he'd learned that the most interesting discoveries usually started with someone saying, "Hold my drink," and ended with the universe becoming a slightly more fascinating place. As he traveled through the newly installed probability corridor, a human innovation that made transit times both instant and entertaining, Zix reflected that perhaps this was what the galaxy had been missing all along, not just humanity's chaos, but their infectious enthusiasm for the unknown. Their willingness to not just face the impossible, but to give it a friendly wave and offer it a quantum-computed beverage. The future of galactic science would be neither purely orderly nor completely chaotic, but a beautiful fusion of both. And if that future occasionally involved surfing through dimensional anomalies or creating sandwiches that existed in multiple probability states simultaneously. Well, that was just part of the fun. After all, as humans like to say, the only real failure in science was not being willing to try something new, even if that something new occasionally required safety goggles and a good sense of humor.